Magic. We have often fantasized about being able to will our environment into any reality we choose. As children, we wish to grasp powers from beyond our own capabilities to become something more. And it has been the subject of nearly every religious practice since the beginning of humanity. The belief in a force beyond our understanding that is perhaps next to godlike. And it is often said that being able to harness this force can make someone into the best version of themselves, or even something greater. On this episode, we're talking magic. What is it? What's the logic behind it? How did we come up with the concepts that invoke some of our deepest fantasy? My name is Dakota Frandsen, and this is a brand new episode of Specialists of the Strange radio show. You've heard my arcanist ally, Avon Karsus, talk a little bit about it. But we're going to dig into something a bit more truthful to the matter. The governing philosophies that just may shape our world in more ways than we can even imagine. So strap in, my friends. This is going to be an interesting episode. Stick around towards the end, because I got some exciting news and could use some of your good thoughts in order to make sure nothing goes wrong. What is it? Well, I'll tell you. But you're just going to have to wait. Welcome. You're not going to want to miss this. I said bring it! Hey everyone, Dakota Frandsen here, Specialist of the Strange. I just wanted to come with you real quick about potentially doing your own podcast. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? Maybe you got a lot of questions like, how do I record? How do I get my show into all these apps that are out there? How can I make money? There are probably several thousand other questions about getting this show off the ground that you have been formulating and communicating in your mind. And I'm here to tell you that there is a very simple answer to this. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, distributing your show. And best of all, it is 100% free. Get all the perks from the other guys without having to pay for subscription fees. And best of all, it is easy. And in fact, Anchor can match you up with sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast right now, which means you can get paid doing what you love. Isn't that the fucking dream, my friends? In fact, that's actually what I'm trying to do right now by reading this ad for you. It is amazing. It helps ease the process for guests, putting on music, whatever you want to do. So if you want to start your podcast, make some money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and several other fabulous people already using Anchor. That's Anchor FM/start. And I cannot wait to hear you on the air. So, we're going to be talking about magic, huh? Hold on a sec. Computer. Next song. I'm not feeling the vibe with this. I should really do this a video. Anyway. So for this video, for this episode, what are we defining magic as? Look it up. It is often described as the use of supernatural forces to affect the outcomes of certain situations. As an adjective, it is often used to describe things that either have supernatural qualities or as a term of something exciting, something that makes people happy. All fair terms. But what is it really? Is magic even real? Some people even try to make the distinction that magic with a K is real supernatural magic, where magic with a C is David Copperfield shit. Well, we're not going to try to go into those distinctions because I honestly get why people try to make that distinction, but it honestly causes a lot more headache. Whereas David Copperfield, the magic is more illusion, sleight of hand. Because even if you look at some of the historical texts, some even describe the figure of Jesus Christ as a magician. Put that thought in your head real quick. So let's go back to the question. What is magic? And I don't want to just leave this as it's an undefinable force. No. There's something there. And trying to leave the mystical factors to it, the mystical explanations of saying it's just something we can't understand, I honestly say that is kind of lazy. We can understand it. We can possibly even measure it. How? That's the part we got to define. And for the purposes of this episode, I'm not limiting to certain forms of magic like voodoo, hoodoo, any premonitions, abilities, things like that. This is going to be kind of a general topic, kind of a magic 101 type thing. A magic for dummies, if you will. But let's get down to it, shall we? Many cultures have believed that items, objects, forces in our world, in our cosmos, affect us, affect life. Let's take, for example, a real geographical location, Mount Shasta, and I believe it's Arizona. There's a lot of stories surrounding it, and often those from the area who study the phenomena surrounding it will say you can always tell if it's going to be an active night in the area depending on which side of the mountain the moon rises that night. What's another good example? Here's one. How iron is associated to be heavenly, divine, and good against warding off demons and evil spirits. How water is supposed to be cleansing, be able to rid us of evil spirits. How meditation is supposed to be able to affect us. How drinking blood, human blood, is said to make one immortal. Not necessarily Wendigo type, where they turn into some monstrous being that cannot be fed, that has an insatiable hunger that is almost impossible to fucking kill. And for those of you wondering, no, I haven't taken on Wendigo myself, but I have observed possible reports. In fact, we might have something going on here nearby that I need to look into. But that's not the news I mentioned earlier. One book that brought a lot of this context to my attention is called The Dark Arts by Richard Cavendish. And in it often describes what associations were likely made at the time when certain objects were given supernatural qualities. Like, let's say, the cross in Christianity, closely tied to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The moon, being that it seems to affect people's mood. Turn that down. Un momento, por favor. Hey, I didn't call for you. Stop it! Sorry about that. This app that I use to record this tends to work better on my phone, and that was just an email notification. But back to what I was saying. In The Dark Arts, Richard Cavendish explains a lot of how certain things became associated with supernatural qualities. And in some, I know it kind of feels like I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but this is an episode geared towards generalizing the topic, and I gotta fit everything within a certain time frame. So, those of you who have poetic inclinations, those of you who have been known to be a bit more artistic in life, may know this. Like, iron be associated with heavenly forces. Where does that come from? Well, before we discovered that iron was naturally produced here on Earth, the only place we ever found it was in meteorites. Came from the heavens, therefore is godlike. There's an example. Meditation, as another example, is often associated with magical practices. And as it has been well documented within scientific circles that meditation brings one's levels to a more healthy area. Yoga practices amongst those who are facing life-threatening illnesses have been shown to actually increase one's lifespan, increase one's odds of beating certain diseases. Prayer, even. So what is it? Are we, in fact, getting help from supernatural forces? And going back to the examples I mentioned earlier, blood, the drinking of blood, how it said vampires drank blood in order to maintain their mortality, to extend their life. It has actually been found that the telomeres, I probably just pronounced that wrong, the telomeres at the ends of our DNA strands can actually be affected by putting in a younger person's blood. Basically, what these telomeres are, they're like the tips of your shoelaces that help the laces be strung through the holes on the shoe. No, I'm not a Phineas and Ferb fan, so that episode didn't really stick, but for some of you younger viewers, telomeres, a lot like that. They help contain the DNA, and their length is actually associated with life expectancy. Say we get somebody who's in their mid-60s. They need blood. They need a blood transfusion. They've been in an accident. They just had a major surgery. What have you. And the person they match with is their, let's go real young, let's go 15-year-old relative. Pending that 15-year-old isn't facing any rare genetic conditions themselves, is in a somewhat healthy state. They don't have to be, the image of perfect health, but not getting to too many nasty things, if you know what I mean. It is actually being found by putting that younger person's blood into the older individual. It can actually extend their life. It's enough of a practice to where there are some older, rich individuals that will pay people, young people, to donate their blood to them. Meditation, said to affect our cellular level, helps improve focus, improves relaxation, sleep cycles, can possibly end up helping with anxiety, depression. Yoga, Tai Chi, many martial arts bring together focus and wholeness of one's own body. The relaxation, the forces that we feel inside our bodies. Prayer, whatever form of prayer you practice, that heavenly, good pressure, warmness that you feel, that's what brings the idea that there's a celestial being behind you. Now, in my experience, whenever you feel that pressure, yeah, that's usually a good sign that something's near you. But that's also another point that I need to go into later on. As for why magic can be used, why magic exists, it's hard to say. Could it just be a byproduct of our own imagination? Maybe. Is it something that only children believe in? Maybe. Am I a complete idiot for even bringing this up? Could I be just talking out my ass here? Maybe. It's hard to say. But in my observations, this is what I found. On previous episodes, I often talked about the ideas of tulpas, beings brought to life by mere thought, given sentience in life by meditative practices. And like I said in the beginning of the show, we often describe feelings of intense happiness, love, cheer, as being magical in nature. Because it is. But why is that? It has often been found that, for some odd reason, human thought can affect reality. It changes certain vibrational levels. And this is not just some pseudoscience, new age stuff. This has actually been stuff that's been documented, but mainstream science isn't exactly sure why it takes place. And it could very well be that this answer is so simple, it's staring at us the entire time. We're overlooking it. And that happens. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more after this commercial break. Do stay tuned. And we're back. Sorry about that. Had to go freshen up a little bit. It's been kind of a funky day. Right, so before the break, we were going into some of the basic introductions when it comes to magic. And I promised to start talking into how it becomes possible. Based on the data that's been collected among I and various other sources, as well as observations from the field, there's only one real explanation that seems to fit. And even though it may seem like it's counterintuitive to my arguments that there's always more to the world, it's the one that best suits for now. That best suits the information we have for now. The reason magic exists, because magic in itself is merely science we have yet to understand. Can we agree on that? Because there was a time when people believed weather patterns, believed the Earth's shaking, lunar eclipses were all the result of supernatural phenomena. When in reality, they just didn't quite understand the situation that was unfolding. And the things we observe as supernatural now may become the new norm later down the road. We can never be entirely sure. How can I say this? Well, all you have to do is look at history. It sounds like almost 5th grade level. How should I put this? Simplifications. Matters teachers will mention to their students in class when they themselves don't actually know the full story. Magic in itself is nature. It is a part of creation. And much like how our mind controls how we move our arms, controls how we perceive certain things, controls our movement, controls our way of speaking, controls our dreams. The way the universe moves, the way creation goes about in its existence, can alter what happens in other parts. Because the creation itself could very well be a living being of its own, and we are nothing more than fragments of its experience, trying to understand why in itself. The universe creation is the highest being, is God. And much like how an author can find a way to insert himself into a fictional story, God could very well insert himself amongst our world, and we may never notice. And because we are a part of creation itself, everything in existence across the multiple dimensions, the multiple planes of reality, all create a singularity, a single being. Much like how moving your finger up and down can make you feel certain muscles in your forearm move. That is the overall function of magic. And once we become knowledgeable in how it all moves, we can manipulate it into doing things beyond even its own imagination. That is the basis of all forms of magic. A while back, I did an article, helped consult for a news article for my local newspaper, Times News, called Understanding the Unexplained. I was one of the paranormal experts consulted for the first part of that article series, along with Jason Hawes from Ghost Nation, actually. So aside from brief interactions online, I've technically worked with guys from Ghost Nation. Anyway, back in this article, there was a quote from our speech that was slightly taken out of context, but applies here. You can think of magic as a paranormal placebo. If you think certain things work, they most likely will in some form. And a part of this that a lot of people don't really seem to understand is that the same parts in our mind that associate, that make you believe in a lucky pair of underwear, are what can make an object holy. Chants, spells, meditations, what have you. They all prayer even. They all are just ways of enhancing the energy that comes from it. Our mind is capable of altering our reality. But we, as human beings, could very well be at the bottom of the food chain, so to speak, in regards to being able to utilize supernatural forces, being able to alter our world. Now, I'm not talking where we have the technology to alter waterways to create new lakes, indoor plumbing, things like that. No. What I'm talking about is what allows us to create tulpas. What allows us to alter our karma. Laws of manifestation and attraction. It is all because we are the simplest beings able to understand the overall changes that can come. And as we go about our journeys in this life and in lives beyond it, we help understand more of it. And as our souls move higher or lower, depending on our vibrational patterns, whether we chose to live our lives in anger, fear, guilt, or with love, compassion, happiness, how we just choose to live our lives builds up. It becomes something more. It takes on a new type of sentience. But just think real quick about some religious figures. No matter which religion you pick, no matter what faith system you belong to, think about some of the spiritual leaders, the figures you've looked to in Christianity. You think of Jesus Christ, prophets over time. Think about how they came into power. You have to be careful, though. Some of these were very corrupt individuals that took advantage of people's ignorance. Hold on, I'm not feeling this song. Computer next. Alright, that's a little better. How these beings were able to understand in order to be... how these people came into their positions are because they realized these truths before most, and were able to utilize it for their own endeavors. We see this in our everyday. The individuals in our lives that seem to have everything handed to them on a silver platter. The luckiest of individuals out there that you can think of. The people that seem to be able to have life all figured out. They have amazing opportunities coming together. Their relationships are good. Could very well be because they figured something out. But at the same time, you got to think about what may be going on behind closed doors. The repercussions of those actions. Those are laws behind magic. As there are ways to help yourself and others utilizing supernatural forces, there are ways to harm. Something that may have started out with even the purest of intentions may have unintended consequences that could prove to be fatal or worse. That's something that we also need to understand. Temporary solutions that have come through our lives. Even the pills we take to try to overcome some of our conditions that we face in this life. Whether it's a simple allergy pill, matters for clinical depression, whatever ails you. The things we take in are as much part of the equation as our own actions and thoughts. And because of how these matters work, because of the freedoms we have, there are aspects of magic that have sentience. And I'm not just talking about thought forms. Elementals, spirits, the things that attract them, the things that affect them. Because they are beings of energy in how we perceive them, as all beings are. Environmental factors, even the attitudes of those around them, can affect their overall mentality. The Earth's vibrational patterns, the Earth's magnetic field can actually alter our behaviors. Though because we are beings capable of understanding these changes, we also have no excuse to not own up to the consequences. Magic is merely creation itself. Magic is the energy that moves through space, that moves through time, that can affect our moods as easily as our own actions can do. Because each and every one of us is part of a grander creation. Something that is beyond what our minds can handle. Something that we are barely able to grasp. And while mainstream science tries its best to distance itself from religious philosophies, even some of the most respected scientists have had to step back a second and go, wait a sec, that kind of sounds like this. And as I've said before, there's a lot we still don't know. Observe every story like it's merely 1% of the truth. And as long as your intentions are to merely understand what that truth is, and what else creates it, for the simple fact of learning and helping. Doing something for the right reasons automatically puts good things on your side. And while it might not prevent negative consequences from unfolding, it will give you the power in order to correct them. Because those of us who are more powerful in understanding and changing how our world works are likely to face conflict beyond anything they've ever imagined. I don't want to try to claim that I'm anything special. Some of you already try to do that for me based on the stories you've heard about me. But I can tell you, it will never be easy. I've even had to turn in my own family. Because the things they were involved in were hurting people. And that's the one thing I want you to take throughout this tale. No matter the methods you may use, no matter the circumstances behind it, nothing is ever truly good or evil, except in its use and how we perceive and react to the changes that come. This is not just a philosophy in magic, but a philosophy in life as well. Whether it's voodoo, Wicca, or even Satanism. Be mindful of the repercussions. And should you have to utilize magic, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Anybody can do it. But there are certain people who have conditions in which will make them more sensitive to it, and therefore more powerful in using it. And that's all I have for today. Tune in next week on March 20th where we're going to analyze a figure. We're going to analyze none other than Aleister Crowley, considered by some to be the most wicked man in the world. What's the truth behind Crowley? That's a topic I want to discuss for next week's episode. Don't go away quite yet. I want to announce something real quick. After this commercial break, we're going to wrap up this show. And I'm going to share with you the latest development in my other projects. So do stay tuned, my friends. I think you're going to want to hear this. Alright, so now that that's good over with, I have some news for you, my friends. At the time this episode drops, I am hitting the road. Or at least getting the last minute preparations ready. For I have been invited to film for a brand new paranormal reality series. Right now the plan is only for one episode, but there's hope for a series to be ordered. This is a completely new project, so it may be a while before you hear something new of it. And I can promise you that it's going to be a little different compared to the other shows out there. How, I'm not going to say. But I wanted to share this with you because it's a very exciting opportunity to finally expand on what I've been trying to do for years now. And yes, you might hear stories that there's some real hunters that would never agree to doing TV shows like this. The truth is, I'm utilizing this in order to, as I utilize my supernatural abilities and knowledge as kind of a gimmick to open up quite a few doorways, if you haven't noticed already. And this is one where I feel that, and it's honestly already starting to take effect with some of the kids that I help mentor and keep an eye on. If I'm able to turn my life, those of you who have followed my journey long enough to know the details, if I'm able to turn my life and even my unusual hobbies into something of my dreams, and they can too. I want to keep going. I want to see how far this thing can go. But for today, I want to ask for simply some good thoughts, that nothing goes wrong, and the location decides to prove fruitful during the investigation portion of the show. As some of you may know, the show is pre-recorded. Right now, it's still February when I'm recording this. The discussions to lock me in for the episode were just finished. Don't know all the details quite yet, but I'm very excited to see how it unfolds. So keep your fingers crossed that everything goes well, because it is kind of a 2-hour road trip that I gotta take. But even though there is someone I honestly wish that I had with me, it would be nice. Heading off into another new adventure. Just nothing but me, snacks for the road, and some good tunes. I'm going to be in Boise, Idaho for this. All weekend. So if you see me, don't be afraid to say hello. I'm not going to tell you the location. And maybe after I film it, I'll announce how it turned out on the episode I find myself recording in that time frame. Oh, I'm such a tease, I know. But trust me, we got good things coming, my friends. And right now, the only other thing I want to say is a happy late birthday to one of my uncles, my grandmother, and one of my sisters, who all had birthdays this week. So, happy birthday to them. I hope it was a good one. More March birthdays coming up for me, because it seems like everyone in my nearly every other person in my family somehow landed in March. I don't know how the fuck that happened. Wait, I do know, but I don't want to know. You know what I mean. Anyway, that's all I'm going to bug you with on this episode. See you next time, my friends. You take care. Be kind to one another.